I assumed she'd been stung by a bee. Her face was swollen, and she kept pawing at it like she was in pain. But when the vet pulled up the CT scan, she went pale. "Oh my God," she muttered. What they discovered was disturbing, and clearly no accident. I couldn't stop thinking about Penny's swollen face and her constant pawing at it since yesterday. She looked so uncomfortable, and there was a hint of sadness in her big eyes. Lying next to her on the couch, I could feel how restless she was. Watching her suffer without knowing how to help was really hard for me. I had a gut feeling that it was more than just a bee sting. After a long and restless night, I knew I couldn't wait any longer. Penny needed to see a vet. Her face wasn't getting any better, and she seemed more anxious. I didn't want to imagine what could be wrong, so I made the decision. We had to go and find out what was really happening. So, early in the morning, I packed Penny into her carrier and drove to the veterinarian's office. The waiting room was crowded with pets and their owners, and Penny was visibly anxious. I could tell she was uncomfortable around so many strangers. Her eyes darted around the room, and she snuggled closer to me whenever someone or something got too close. It felt like everyone's eyes kept glancing over at Penny's swollen face, which didn't help either of our nerves. I just wanted to know what was wrong. As we waited for our turn, I focused on keeping Penny calm. I stroked her fur gently, whispering to her that everything would be okay. "You're such a brave girl, Penny," I murmured, hoping to distract her from the discomfort and noise around us. She nestled deeper into my lap, and I continued to talk softly, trying to soothe her. I would do anything to ease her stress and reassure her that she was safe. Finally, it was our turn to see Dr. Miller. I carefully explained Penny's symptoms, my voice a mixture of anxiety and hope. Her face just started swelling, and she's been pawing at it nonstop. "She seems really uncomfortable," I said, glancing at Penny. Dr. Miller nodded, jotting down notes as I spoke. She listened intently, and I hoped she could help us figure out what was really going on with Penny. Dr. Miller began her examination, her expression serious, as she checked Penny thoroughly. I watched the furrowing of her brow deepen with each observation. Her hands moved gently but with precision over Penny's small frame, inspecting every inch. She murmured, more to herself than to me. I held my breath, hoping she would have answers. It was clear this wasn't a simple case, and that made me even more concerned. "I'd like to do a CT scan," Dr. Miller suggested, looking directly at me. Her tone was calm but firm, making my heart race. The word "scan" made everything feel more serious than I had been prepared for. "Is it really necessary?" I asked, trying not to let my fear show. "We need to be sure what we're dealing with," she replied, and I nodded, trusting her expertise as we agreed to move forward. As we waited for the scan results, my mind raced. I couldn't sit still, so I paced the small waiting area. Every minute felt like an eternity. Penny lay on a blanket beside me, resting, probably tired from all the fuss. I glanced at the door each time it opened, hoping it would be Dr. Miller with good news about Penny. The uncertainty was driving me crazy, but all I could do was wait. To distract myself from the worrying spiral, I started observing the other pets in the waiting room. There was a fluffy white dog sitting loyally at his owner's feet, a parrot preening inside its cage, and more cats lounging in carriers. I tried to find comfort in the normalcy surrounding us, reminding myself that we were in good hands. At that moment, I hoped we'd leave the vet's office with answers and Penny's healing journey. Finally, Dr. Miller called me in to discuss the CT scan results. Her voice over the phone had urgency, and I could feel a knot forming in my stomach. I hurried back, trying to brace myself for whatever she was about to reveal. As I entered her office, I couldn't help but notice how serious she looked. The air felt thick with anticipation as I took a seat, eager but nervous to hear what she had to say. Dr. Miller had a puzzled and slightly alarmed look on her face when I re-entered. It wasn't what I'd expected to see. She nodded briefly as I sat down, her eyes scanning the CT results laid out in front of her. "There's something odd about this," she said, pointing at the images. My heart jumped a little, and I leaned closer, trying to see what had caught her attention so intensely. She showed me the CT scan, pointing at the unusual patterns she had observed. The images displayed strange, irregular marks that didn't look like anything I'd seen before. These aren't typical for a bee sting, Dr. Miller explained, tapping her pen on the light table. I squinted at the picture, not really understanding, but her expression told me enough. My worry for Penny intensified as I tried to grasp what was going on. Her expression turned serious, and I knew something wasn't right with Penny's case. "This isn't a simple insect sting," she said, her voice low but firm. The room felt suddenly smaller, the air heavier with concern. I swallowed hard, trying to keep my composure as the reality of the situation sank in. Penny lay quietly beside me, oblivious to our concerns, but I could feel my protectiveness for her growing stronger. I felt my heart sinking as Dr. Miller asked me questions about Penny's recent activities. "Has she been anywhere unusual lately?" she asked, writing notes as she spoke. I racked my brain, trying to think of anything that might help. "We've mostly been around the house," I replied, desperation creeping into my voice. This line of questioning made everything feel more serious, and I couldn't shake the sense that something was very wrong. Together, we began to piece together any signs I might have missed in the past week. Dr. Miller was patient as she guided me through remembering any small detail. "Think back," she encouraged. I replayed our days in my mind, mentally noting anything out of the ordinary. It felt like solving a mystery, putting together a puzzle where I wasn't sure what the picture would look like once complete. We retraced Penny's steps from the past few days, trying to find any suspicious events. "Let's start with her favorite spots," Dr. Miller suggested. I nodded, thinking about the park where we often spent our afternoons. It seemed like nothing could be wrong in our usual haunts, but I realized anything was possible. "Let's see. She's been to the park almost every day," I mentioned, hoping to uncover something helpful. I recalled a strange incident in the park when Penny seemed unusually skittish. "There was this one time," I began, "when she nearly bolted away from me." Dr. Miller leaned in, interested. "Go on," she urged. I described how on that day something had clearly spooked Penny. "She was so jumpy and didn't want me to pick her up," I continued, painting a picture of her unusual behavior. Penny had tried to hide under a bench, resisting my efforts to coax her out. I remembered how odd it was for her. She wasn't usually like that. "She really tucked herself in there," I said, illustrating how she had curled up defensively. "It took me ages to get her out," I added. Dr. Miller nodded, taking notes diligently. It was clear this behavior was a piece of the puzzle. There'd been construction nearby. Maybe something there had caused her discomfort and fear. The noise and commotion might have unsettled her, but now it seemed like a clue we couldn't ignore. Could it be something from the site? I wondered aloud, hoping I was on the right track. Dr. Miller seemed to consider this, her brow furrowed in thought. This felt like a lead we could follow in understanding Penny's distress. Dr. Miller looked at me seriously and suggested, "Keep Penny close by for now. Let's schedule a follow-up." I agreed, nodding. We set an appointment for the following week. Leaving the office, Penny nestled into my arms. I could feel her tiny body relax a little, but my mind kept racing. I knew I had to keep a close watch on her, ensuring her safety was my priority. Determined to protect Penny, I changed our routine. We started taking shorter, more mindful walks. Each step, I was hyper-aware of our surroundings, scanning for anything unusual. As we strolled down familiar paths, I made sure no one suspicious was nearby. Penny seemed to pick up on my alertness and trotted alongside me, her little head scanning too, her anxiety almost mirroring mine. During one of our cautious walks, I noticed something odd. There were new faces at our usual park people I'd never seen before. They lingered at the park benches, chatting or watching the dogs play. "Have you seen these folks before, Penny?" I whispered, trying not to draw attention. She flicked her ears, and I took it as a sign that she was noticing them too, adding to my suspicions. Penny's behavior shifted with each outing. She was more cautious and hesitant, often stopping to look around nervously. "What's got you all worked up, girl?" I found myself asking as she hesitated at the park's entrance. Her usual bounce wasn't there, and I felt a pang of worry seeing her so different. It was like she sensed something I couldn't put my finger on, making it more crucial to investigate further. A chill ran down my spine each time we walked through the park. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It got stronger every time Penny and I were out. "Stay close to me, okay?" I murmured, as she glanced up at me with those big, sad eyes. The unease hung around like a shadow, making me even more determined to get to the bottom of it. Fueled by the need for answers, I started asking neighbors about any strange happenings recently. "Hey, Linda, have you noticed anything odd?" I asked our next-door neighbor during our morning chat. She paused, thoughtful, and it sparked hope in me. "Not sure, but I did hear some folks mention unusual things lately," she said. Her words filled me with both dread and determination. I had to dig deeper. Linda mentioned seeing strangers lingering near the park for consecutive days. "It's like they're just waiting around, doing nothing." She shrugged, clearly concerned. This news sent a jolt through me, connecting dots in my head. "Thank you for letting me know," I replied, trying to keep calm. The situation seemed to escalate with each detail. I knew I had to stay vigilant and find out what was really happening. As I gathered more information, I discovered a pattern. Local pets were also experiencing odd incidents. Neighbors shared stories of unexplained injuries and sudden illnesses. "I wonder if there's a connection," I mused aloud one evening, petting Penny. It wasn't just about us. It was the whole neighborhood. This collective mystery deepened my involvement, pushing me to uncover what or who was responsible for these sinister occurrences. The stories from neighbors added layers to the growing mystery, and I felt more determined than ever to find the truth. With each account, the picture became clearer. It wasn't just random bad luck. Something or someone was behind it all. "We'll get to the bottom of this, Penny," I assured her, my resolve stronger than ever. It was time to take action and ensure our neighborhood was safe again. Seeking solidarity, I joined a local pet owners group who shared similar concerns. At our first meeting, I recounted Penny's experiences, hoping to piece together more clues. "Anyone else had strange things happen?" I asked the group, feeling Penny tense beside me. Their nods and shared stories helped confirm my suspicions. Together, we agreed to stay alert and look out for each other, creating a sense of community and vigilance. We quickly organized ourselves into a helpful network of watchful pet owners. "Let's keep each other updated," I suggested at our group's meetup. Mac, the owner of a cheerful dachshund, nodded. "I'll spread the word at the dog park," he offered. We swapped numbers and promised to look out for unusual behavior in our furry friends. With everyone working together, it felt like we had a safety net, one woven with genuine care and concern for every pet out there. Talking to other pet owners opened my eyes to some alarming incidents. "My cat's been so jumpy lately," Paula from across the street shared, shaking her head. "I thought it was nothing. But now," she trailed off, uncertainty in her tone. Her experience triggered a memory about Penny's anxious behavior. It seemed like this wasn't an isolated issue. Everyone had a tale of sudden illnesses or weird wounds that didn't make sense, fueling our growing alarm. One story struck a chord. Jane, a lively woman with a golden retriever named Max, spoke up. "Max had a funny limp out of nowhere," she said, worry clouding her face. "One day he was fine, and the next, well, not." I exchanged glances with the others, feeling a collective realization wash over us. Just like Penny, Max's symptoms appeared after a normal outing. What started as concern turned into a call to action for all of us. Another pet parent recounted his unsettling experience. Tom, who walked his German Shepherd Rex every afternoon, shared quietly, "I overheard a couple discussing something disturbing. It was like they knew of the injuries." His revelation sent shivers down my spine, adding another layer to our growing concern. Rex had been on edge lately, just like Penny. This new piece of information was another reason to stay alert and continue digging for answers. All these stories sparked a fiery determination in us. "We can't just sit around," I declared, meeting everyone's eyes. Mac nodded firmly. "We owe it to our pets to figure this out." It was clear that this wasn't just random misfortune. The stories matched up too well. Working as a team, our resolve grew stronger, feeding off each other's energy. We knew we were onto something bigger and needed to act while we still had the chance. It was time to take our findings to the authorities. "We should make a report," I suggested, and the group agreed. Heading to the local station with a few fellow pet owners, I felt a mix of anticipation and apprehension. "They need to know about this," Jane whispered as we approached the building. With a deep breath, we stepped inside, hoping our concerns would be taken seriously and that action might follow to protect all our beloved pets. Reaching out to the authorities was harder than I imagined. Skepticism met us at every turn. "So you're saying there's a mystery assailant targeting pets?" an officer asked, doubt lacing his words. I explained patiently. "We don't know for sure, but something's happening." Frustration bubbled up with each lukewarm response, yet a small part of me remained hopeful. I knew getting them to commit would require persistence and proving we weren't just paranoid pet owners. Just as hope was waning, Officer Kelly approached us, genuine concern in her eyes. "I can help with this," she said, promising to look into our claims further. Relief washed over me like a gentle wave. It was good to know at least someone took us seriously. Her willingness to investigate gave us the backing we needed, encouraging us to continue our own vigilance. We weren't alone in our quest for answers anymore. While Officer Kelly followed leads, our group remained active, eyes peeled for anything suspicious. "We'll take the early morning shift," Mac offered, caffeinated coffee in hand. I nodded, determined to join the evening crew. Back at the park, familiar sights felt ominous under our watchful eyes. Every rustle or stray pedestrian seemed suspect. It wasn't paranoia, it was dedication to protecting our pets. As long as this mystery remained unsolved, our vigilance couldn't waver. We set up a rotating schedule to patrol the park, walking our dogs while watching everything around us. "You see anything yet?" Jane whispered as we passed a cluster of benches. "Not yet, but keep your eyes peeled," I replied, scanning the area. With phones ready to record evidence, we were like amateur detectives, piecing together snippets of odd behavior and unfamiliar faces. That day, amidst the usual park bustle, a troubling pattern started to emerge. As word spread, more neighbors began to join our efforts. Our group seemed to grow overnight, with everyone wanting to help keep our pets safe. "I'm in," Linda said eagerly at the latest meeting, her determination evident. People started exchanging tips, sharing strange encounters, and staying in touch. It was uplifting to see our neighborhood come together. It felt like our effort was finally gaining traction, and I hoped we could get to the bottom of this soon. Armed with new information from our community, I returned to Dr. Placed Ob CE-N. Miller with Penny. "People are reporting strange things with their pets," I blurted out, eager to share everything. Dr. Miller listened carefully, taking notes as I detailed the incidents. It felt good to have solid information this time, and I could see her interest peaked. We were definitely onto something big, and I hoped Dr. Miller would have insights to guide us. Dr. Miller looked thoughtful as she reviewed her own notes. "I've treated quite a few pets with unusual injuries recently," she mentioned, her eyes serious. "It's like there's a pattern emerging," she continued, flipping through charts. My heart skipped a beat at her words. It wasn't just in my head, something sinister was indeed happening. Her observations added weight to our concerns, making me more determined to find a solution. Dr. Miller pointed to Penny's previous scans, highlighting irregular damage on her bones. "These patterns don't make sense for simple accidents," she observed, her voice firm. I peered at the scans, a cold feeling washing over me. It was the first real clue that something more nefarious was behind Penny's pain. Dr. Clued. Miller's revelation added urgency to our quest, fueling my desire to protect not just Penny, but every pet in the neighborhood. "We need to be careful and document everything," Dr. Miller urged, her tone serious. She explained that without concrete evidence, it would be hard to pinpoint the cause of these injuries. I nodded, agreeing to keep track of all incidents and any suspicious behavior. It wasn't much, but it was a start. With renewed focus, I knew our little group had to be thorough and careful as we pressed onward. As our neighborhood meetings continued, a sense of justified concern hung over us. Even the smallest details seemed significant now. "We can't let this go on," Max said, his voice filled with resolve. Every story shared only bolstered our determination. Together, we decided to redouble our efforts, more focused than ever on ending these mysterious incidents. Our unity was our strength, and I felt hopeful that we could stop this. Our neighborhood group took shifts monitoring the park, always keeping an eye out. "See anything weird?" Jane asked as she and I patrolled the area. We shook our heads but stayed vigilant. Each day felt like a step closer to solving the mystery. With everyone looking out, even the usual sounds of the park felt different under our watch. We knew solutions wouldn't appear overnight, but our resolve was stronger than ever. One late evening, as the sun disappeared, I noticed a shadowy figure near the trees. My heart raced as I realized this could be a lead. I whispered to Penny, "Stay close, girl." Moving quietly, I tried to get a better look without drawing attention. The figure seemed to move cautiously, as if hiding. Something definitely felt off, and I knew I had to act fast before they disappeared. I held my breath, creeping closer while taking out my phone. Although the figure was mostly in the dark, I managed to snap some blurry photos before they vanished, leaving me with more questions. Returning to the group, I shared the images. "What do you think?" I asked, heart beating in my ears. The eerie encounter only heightened our sense of urgency, and the anticipation of a breakthrough brewed within us. Gathering with the others, our excitement and fear mingled in the air like fog. "What now?" Linda asked, and we all pondered the options. The images might not have been clear, but they were something to go on. "Let's show these to Officer Kelly," Max suggested, and we nodded in agreement. It was time to kick our efforts up a notch and see if, finally, we could put an end to the mystery. After gathering more evidence, we felt it was time to visit the local police again. This time, we had photos and a bunch of stories from our neighbors. "We have something to show," I told Officer Kelly. Her eyes widened slightly. We hoped these details would be enough for them to take our situation seriously. Each step felt nerve-wracking, but we were more prepared, determined to find answers for Penny and the other pets. In the little conference room, we spread out our findings. "Here are the photos from the park," I explained, pointing to the blurry images. Mac chimed in with stories about neighborhood pets. Officer Kelly listened intently, nodding along. She scribbled notes quickly, and we could see the change in her expression. It was getting serious. It seemed like the pieces were finally clicking together, and we hoped she'd see the urgency. Officer Kelly stood up, her expression more engaged than before. "We'll increase patrols in the area," she finally said, and relief spread across the room. It was a small victory, but it felt huge. The other officers seemed interested too, chatting quietly as they reviewed our evidence. Our persistence was paying off, and it was exciting to know that the safety of our neighborhood pets was finally being prioritized. Back in the neighborhood, we realized more needed to be done, so we joined forces with local animal rescue groups. "What if we all work together?" I suggested during one of our meetings. The team from PAWS was eager to help. We knew these groups had expertise and connections that we could utilize. By collaborating, our efforts felt amplified and more organized, and it was comforting to know we had even more allies on our side. "Let's do workshops," said Linda, who was always overflowing with ideas. We all agreed eagerly. We organized sessions to educate the community about pet safety. Linda was in charge of contacting folks, and everyone pitched in with flyers and pamphlets. "It's important to get everyone involved," Jane said, handing out more flyers. The workshops were a hit, bringing awareness about the recent incidents to a wider audience. We felt more hopeful with each new session. Realizing we needed to widen our reach, we turned to local media. "A story like this could really spread," Max suggested, reaching out to a friend at the newspaper. Soon, a journalist visited us for interviews. "Anything helps," I said, as I explained Penny's ordeal. It felt empowering to share our story, hoping others would step forward with information. The media attention was a big step in raising public awareness and possibly gathering more leads. One morning, Mac waved a newspaper in the air excitedly. "Have you seen this?" he exclaimed. The headline about another pet incident made my heart skip a beat. It connected to ours, hinting at something bigger. This was our chance to show everyone it wasn't isolated. The article laid out points eerily similar to what Penny went through. We jumped into action, knowing this was the momentum we needed to push our cause further. With the media coverage, our concerns flooded into public discussions. "It's all over social media," Jane said, scrolling through posts. The story seemed to pop up everywhere, causing an outcry. It was like everyone suddenly felt the urgency we did, and it spurred faster movement from the police. The pressure was on, and it seemed like action was imminent. Our once quiet neighborhood was now buzzing with activity, determined to bring about change. We held a community meeting to brainstorm safety ideas. Let's watch each other's backs, a voice in the crowd urged. Together, we discussed installing more lights and security cameras around parks. We can do neighborhood watches, someone else suggested. Each idea contributed to a sense of unity. Everyone wanted to be part of the solution, creating a safer place for our pets. It felt like we were building a barricade against the fear and uncertainty. With heightened watchfulness, our neighborhood felt more tense, yet united. Stay alert, Mac reminded everyone during his morning jog. People looked out for each other's pets, creating a sense of shared responsibility. Doors were always open, offering a safe haven. Even Penny seemed more upbeat, sensing the change around her. The community spirit was strong, a collective effort against the strange happenings. As days went by, our vigilance became an everyday part of life. Our little group was growing stronger by the day, all thanks to the new friendships we'd built, like those with Linda and Mac. We were all determined to find whoever was behind this. "We can't stop until we get answers," Mac said one evening, and everyone nodded in agreement. It felt good knowing we were not alone in this. Together, we shared ideas, traded stories, and stood strong in our resolve. One day, Jane called with some news that made my skin crawl. She'd heard from a friend that some suspicious individuals were hanging around near the park. "They were just standing there watching," Jane explained during our meeting. Every word she said felt like a red flag, and I could see the others in the room tense up. We knew we had to figure out who these people were and why they were there. Linda, with her detective-like intuition, began piecing together a connection between these individuals and some strange incidents from our neighborhood meetings. "Remember that story about the injured dog near the park?" she asked, and the room nodded in unison. It all started to make sense now. These weren't isolated events, but pieces of a bigger puzzle. We had a lead, and it was time to follow it. With the lead at hand, we decided to keep an even closer watch on the area. "Let's spread out and cover more ground," Max suggested. Armed with notepads and keen eyes, we took turns watching different parts of the park and beyond. Every rustle, every shadow was noted. Slowly, we gathered more data, hoping it would bring us closer to uncovering the mystery that haunted our community. As our findings piled up, we handed everything over to Officer Kelly, who was now fully on board. "We're going to need to interrogate some folks," she told us after reviewing our data. It was a sign that things were getting serious finally. Gaining her support felt like a breakthrough, knowing the police were zeroing in on potential suspects. This was one more step in helping the animals we all cherished. Things were starting to get intense. None of us could shake the feeling that something deeper was going on. Why would someone hurt these animals? Jane wondered aloud during one of our meetings. The question hung in the air, heavy with concern. The motives remained unclear, but every theory made us want to dig deeper. It drove us to persist, determined to protect our pets and those of our neighbors. Armed with our suspicions and some new questions, I visited Dr. Miller. "Can you show me the CT scan again?" I asked her, curious if there was anything we might have missed. Carefully, she highlighted the image, revealing those tiny metallic fragments embedded inside Penny. "This wasn't an accident," Dr. Miller said quietly. My stomach turned, realizing the sinister intent behind Penny's suffering. We now had an undeniable clue. The reality of intentional harm hit us hard. Back at our neighborhood meeting, everyone was on edge. "We can't let this go on," Linda declared, her frustration shared by everyone in the room. It was clear now that talking wasn't enough. We needed action. So, we decided to press harder on law enforcement to ensure the safety of our pets. The urgency in our actions reflected the depth of our resolve. A few days after our renewed push, I got a call from Officer Kelly. "We've made some arrests," she said, her voice carrying a mix of relief and triumph. At last, it looked like we might uncover the truth behind these disturbing events. Penny's story sparked a movement for change and ensured those who meant harm faced justice. It felt like a weight lifting, knowing our community's pets would be safer now. Penny's case became a beacon for our neighborhood, inspiring everyone to stay vigilant and stand against cruelty. People shared their stories freely, and the bonds we forged were stronger than ever. "Penny might have saved us all," Jane said one evening, and we all nodded, knowing in our hearts it was true. What started as fear turned into resilience, ensuring our pets could live freely and safely because of Penny.